Today we're going to replace these old terminal lugs. I need to make lugs for these welding leads, and the challenge we've got is a 12.5mm hole terminal post that it needs to go on, and the terminal posts that I find with a 12.5mm hole in them, even a 12mm actually, are designed for a much larger sized lead, a bit like a battery lead in a car. So these leads are, I think, 6mm across in terms of the core inside these cables, may even be less. So the challenge is to actually work out how to get a small end here with that large hole there. So I've got a theory, and that is to make one out of copper pipe. I've looked it up on the internet. There's a couple of YouTubes about it. This is my first attempt using the good old large vise that's attached to the mini workbench. And you see I've got really actually quite a strong lug. I made a little crease in there for that to open up, to squeeze down. Now the problem here is we've still got such a large area, so I need to work out a way of being able to split this. So my theory is, if I make another one and I cut down through the pipe to the halfway and then squeeze that. I also need to make this tab longer because we've got quite a large terminal to go over the top of it. In fact, this right here is the connector, so I need to make it larger so that I can center the hole basically where the end of this is. So I need to make it, that big, and I want just a little bit more length here, so I've added another 5mm or so. So my next diagram here is 20mm long for that section, and a slice to the halfway point before I do the squeeze, and then a much longer tang out here on the lug. So that's the next thing to do, is to cut a piece that's actually 60mm long. Now that we've cut out our little Ned Kelly shaped piece, we need to set it up in the vise for squeezing. I'll use a 11.5mm drill to just slot in there to actually protect this from being crushed. So that'll help it keep its shape. In fact, for some reason it's called a burr, so it's holding there nicely. And I'll set this up in the vise. I'll do the first crush quite tight. I'm making sure that I've got it set up so that it's middle of the vise. It's always a good idea, and so that I've got it's not quite flat, so I've got the two sides. It's not quite there either, so I've got the two sides of it centered as best I can. A little measurement there, little measurement there. Yeah, that's even. Okay, now, and vertical, and then we just start squeezing it. Now it's actually pretty strong, this copper pipe. I was quite amazed when I did the first experimental one. So it takes a bit of squeezing, but there it goes. This is just the first squeeze. This will make a good shaped lug with a bit of fine tuning. Squeeze that down as tight as I can. Oh, it's even almost too tight to undo it. And then I'll do the second squeeze to get the back end of it, and then we'll do some refining in a minute. Make sure we squeeze that out with those shoulders as parallel as possible. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now that's worked out really nicely. I've got quite a nice amount there. I've got a really clean shape there. It's really strong. I'm surprised how strong these are. Now we'll just do some tidying up here. One thing, never hammer on your vice jaws. This vice is an old vice. I think it belonged to my grandfather. My father restored it at one stage. The rear jaw here has the bottom support here has broken out all the way across. Just the cast has broken out, and that's because these aren't designed to be hammered on. If you've got a vice with an anvil section, hammer on the anvil section. Now I'm only tapping lightly, and this is copper, so I'm okay doing it on here lightly. In fact, I should say that way. So this is just neatening up. Neatening up that lug. Now I will curve this once I'm happy with it, make a nice sort of D shape on the end. But that's looking good. Let's see if we've made it almost to plan. It's a little bit shorter than I expected. Oh, the drawing's not to scale, of course. So that's almost exactly what I drew. So that's fantastic. This will be able to fit nicely on there when we put a hole in there. And I've got something to play with here. Now what I'm going to do, I think, I need to experiment with this, but basically what I think I'll do is actually cut a section out of this and then crimp that over as best I can. In fact, the first step is, like I did with the other one, is just squeeze it a little bit to make it an oval shape. And that'll give me an indication, yeah, that's okay. That'll give me an indication of how much I can take out and still leave a foldable lug. So that's the way I'm going to try and do these ones. And I think it's working out reasonably well. So that's a prototype. May actually end up becoming the final product, that one, because I really quite like it. It's very strong. I can't bend that with my hand, so it's making a strong component. And of course it'll be covered with heat shrink for some extra protection once it's done. I'm not sure he was expecting quite that treatment. As you can see, I've just taken to that with the hacksaw and taken a fair chunk of it off. In fact, slightly more than halfway. I think that's going to be a reasonable amount for that to then be bent around over the top of and crimp in on top of the cable that's going to be in there. I think that's going to be okay. There is a risk, of course, that I've taken off too much. We need to neaten that up with a file a little bit. Let's see if we can do that while we're here. I've actually cut it to this size because I think I've got a 4mm cable rather than a 6mm cable that I initially talked about. So I think this is going to be good. I'm going to experiment a little bit further, but I'll try this on a piece of cable and see how we go. Just done the first part of the crimp, and now the second part. Found the vice grips very effective for crimping this together. Might even see if I can overlap this one. Maybe. Oh, that's tight. Squeeze it down. Yeah, it's a fairly tight crimp. Here's the setup I'm using for adding the heat shrink. I've already put 2 layers of very thin heat shrink on this end just to build out the termination. But I want to just protect against some flexibility here. It won't come out because it's soldered in, and we want, mechanically the inner cable is connected very strongly to the lug terminal. But let's set this up. I've got this brace bit. We love the look of these, but no one knows what to do with them these days. There's no real use for them apart from very traditional people doing woodwork. I'm just using it to hold our piece up. What I'll do is I'll put the first piece of heat shrink on starting here just to give that some strength across here, and then the second piece I'll overlap to provide quite a long length of strain relief, more flexible strain relief here. So I'll have solid strain relief through there and more flexible. Really this is about in case these accidentally get tugged. We don't want all the pressure to go on the joint here or the section here that's unprotected. So let's get this set up. I shall use the gas. So let's get that lit. There we go. Not wanting to burn anything down here, I'll turn the flame down just a little. I'll apply some light heat. The particular heat shrink I'm using here is a 16mm and 4:1 reduction ratio. Let's see if that's ready. Oh yeah, that's much better. Slide that in. Yes, no problem there. Now here I want to overlap this just onto the terminal itself, the lug itself. And again we'll warm that carefully over its length, applying the heat gently. Alright, well there we go. I'm really happy with the result. There's a nice strong firm bond there, and we've got a good flexible section, fairly firm still, and then into the cable itself. So that's going to give a great graded strain relief, and certainly very happy with the result, replacing these old opened up crimp terminals with these homemade copper pipe version. Good, pleasing, satisfying result. Well, thanks for watching. And stay tuned for more videos from the Proto 49 workshop.